Two. Hey guys, my name is Nick. This is my presentation for my final project going over my case study. So the project proposal that I was given was deciding whether or not a airliner should be choosing a Boeing 777 or 787 aircraft versus a Airbus A380 aircraft. This project goes down breaking down why we should be choosing the aircraft, the pros and cons of each of those aircrafts. And then going to a schedule as far as how we're going to put together that choice, what we need to do in order to make sure that that airplane is rolled out in an effective manner that does not slow down any of our operations and getting from acquiring the aircraft to having them ready to fly. So the choices we were given, this is a brief breakdown of why we chose the aircrafts that we did. The Boeing 777, some of the pros we have is it's a more popular aircraft among pilots and crews. It's very friendly to the consumer for the most part. Everyone knows Boeing 777s. They're a regular aircraft. Some of the cons, Boeing is not doing the best when it comes to PR and public image right now, given their poor track with safety in recent months. Same with the 787 shorter runways, which means there are more more airports that a plane can land at for maintenance or emergencies if need be. However, one of the cons with the 787 is there are less than 1,200 total planes across the entire industry, so less pilots are ready to fly those and less mechanics are graded to work on those. When we move over to the Airbus A380, the biggest pro that I see is there is a massive seating capacity. We are able to seat a large amount of people on that plane. In addition, we have a longer flight range, so we can go farther. We can travel to more destinations, more direct routes for those consumers. And the A380 is a newer plane altogether. It is better designed. It is a more standard of luxury to the everyday consumer. Some of the cons, there are fewer trained mechanics for these planes because they are still newer. And then since the airplane is incredibly massive, there are a smaller amount of airports that can actually land these planes given the size of runway they need to operate on a regular basis. That being said, the choice we are going to go with is the Airbus A380. Again, there is way less negative PR than Boeing is currently dealing with right now, which immediately builds a reputation of trust and concern for safety for our consumers. The higher seating capacity, the planes are much newer. Again, the image of luxury when people are flying on an Airbus A380 is something that consumers want. And then finally, the planes are popular with long-haul flights given the fact that we can go almost anywhere on the planet with those planes. Now, breaking down our timeline, this is going to be broken down even more in some of my future slides. We're putting together, defining what are the options that we have. Those are the planes we were going over, what we could pick, what we could choose. Acquiring the planes, how much are they, why are we choosing them, again, operations and pathways, any concerns we might have, and then we're going to be looking at execution. What are the lifespan of these planes? How are we going to get them in the air? How many people do we need to train and how do we go about doing that? Fine-tuning, we're going to be asking not only our investors and our operating leaders on how we can improve the planes and the operation that we have going, but we're also going to be asking pilots, cabin crews, mechanics, and ground crews as to what they believe needs to change in order to make sure that everyone is being heard. And then the final deliverables, the control, how can we keep this positive operation going forward? This is my Gantt chart breaking down the steps of each of those processes. Again, phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. How are we defining our problems? How are we measuring them? What are we going to complete in our analyzing phase? How are we going to improve? Why are we going to improve? And then again, how do we get to that long-term sustainability in phase 5, which is our control phase? So phase 1 is defining our decision that we've made. We've made the decision to roll out a new fleet of Airbus A380 aircrafts. The cost per plane, brand new, is approximately $455 million. That is before we furnish the plane with an interior. That is before we get it ready and inspected. That is the cost of the plane itself. The long-term cost of the plane operation-wise per hour is going to be about $26,000. Now, that does sound like a lot, but again, it is worth the investment, and given the fact that we're going to have a higher seating capacity, that will be translated into a ticket price that is actually possibly more affordable for the consumers. And then the time frame of rolling out these planes and having them flight ready, like I said, that was shown in my chart in the previous slide. Measuring, setting the expectations for how we are going to roll out our fleet. The flight routes that are more popular and have a more defined route, for example, London to New York, big cities that lots of people are traveling to, those are going to be the routes that primarily will be using the A380. Given the fact they're a higher capacity, more people are going between these locations, it would make sense to have a plane like the A380 servicing these routes due to the fact that they have the seating capacity to do so. One of my quotes, in other words, instead of the hub and spoke system which passengers fly in 747s or A380s to airports, we're not going to be focusing on the hub and spoke models that majority of airliners would when they're going to one larger airport and then branching off to a smaller. This is more focused on direct flights between those larger cities, LAX, New York, London, potentially Tokyo or China, international routes that are very profitable. Time frame of the goals per plane, per hardware, and how we're going to staff all of these employees. Analyzing, exploring again the cost of the plane. It's 455 million USD per plane. The cost of maintenance, cost of annual upkeep, the training that we are going to need required for each plane. Now, the training has been broken into two different groups. Ground crew, which is going to be your mechanics, your gate agents, people that are working on the plane on the ground, and then the people in the air working the plane. These are going to be your pilots, your navigational officers, and then your cabin crew and flight attendants. And when we're looking at analyzing the plane as well, we have to keep in mind there is a chance this plane could last a long time. We want to know if it's worth potentially reselling when we are ready to upgrade our fleet again. When we're talking about improving our system, this is where we're seeking feedback from multiple points of contact. Again, the air crew, the pilots, the cabin crews, the air traffic controllers, if they've seen any issues as well. We want to make sure that we have every point possibly covered when there is an issue. Ground crew, if mechanics need new tools to service these planes, we want to make sure that they have those new tools. If someone who is loading bags believes it's better to develop a different system to load the plane with the luggage, we want to know how we can possibly streamline that and make it more more productive for the consumers and for our operations. And then gate agents, if they know first class takes a little more time to load, we should be scheduling that time to make sure that our customers do not feel rushed and they still experience a sense of luxury on these planes. After the feedback is received, we want to implement this feedback into an everyday practice to make sure that we are streamlining everything so there are very few issues. Control. This is the last stage in our plan. This is going to be our long-term operations. How do we take that feedback that we took in phase 4 and apply it to our everyday practice? Making sure that if we're needing to upkeep our planes a certain way, we're doing that. Making sure that we know whenever we're bringing on new staff members or new pilots, they're trained accordingly. Maximizing the efficiency and promoting long-term care for the planes. If we know that after so many miles they need an extra inspection, we're ready to do that. Looking forward as well, whenever we are looking for new planes that we need to replace these current planes, we should be looking at what planes are similar to the ones we are currently operating to make sure that we are not rehauling everything. Instead, we can streamline a new plane into the fleet as possible. The end goal deliverables that we are looking at to roll out that brand new fleet of Airbus A380 aircrafts to our new airlines, to maintain those planes both mechanically and operational when it comes to staff members, ground crew, flight crew, everyone, to maximize the capabilities of the planes. If we're maintaining them and we're taking care of them, we're not going to see any long-term issues. And finally, to make sure that if we can get the max amount of time out of the plane and its lifespan, we are willing to do that. This is the first page of my citations. This is the second page of my citations. Thank you very much for watching my presentation.